if everyone kind of does what they say that they're going to do by 2030, our industry could look quite different. And I also hope that, all of the innovations and the momentum, as you said, that we're really seeing emerge, I hope that really starts to drive change. It's not going to happen overnight, but 5 years, a lot can change.
Hello and welcome. I'm Elizabeth Formosa, the founder of Fashion Equipped and devourer of all things fashion, business and mindset. In this podcast, I'm speaking with thought leaders, change makers and entrepreneurs about the business side of fashion and everything in between. Fashion Business Mindset is your front row seat to real stories from designers, brands, entrepreneurs, makers and mentors. We'll discuss how to launch and grow a fashion business and give you insider access to the future of fashion. So let's do this together and ensure that you're equipped to make the fashion business your business. Welcome back to Fashion Business Mindset. My guest today is Rebekka Carey-Smith, the Head of Sustainability at The Iconic. With over 10 years of experience in both the corporate and not-for-profit sectors, Rebekka specialises in transforming fashion supply chains to prioritise sustainable and responsible practices. Her extensive background equips her to navigate the complexities of the evolving global sustainability landscape, ensuring improved social and environmental outcomes. In her role as Head of Sustainability at The Iconic, Rebekka leads the implementation of the sustainability strategy, which is built on 3 core pillars: climate change adaptation, the circular economy, and human rights. As a leading e-commerce fashion and lifestyle platform in Australia and New Zealand, The Iconic recognises the urgent responsibility of the fashion industry to collectively manage its social and environmental impacts. Rebekka focuses on embedding sustainability governance throughout the organisation and within its external partnerships, while advancing The Iconic's decarbonisation strategy, which emphasises a transition away from conventional supply chains and collaboration on initiatives that promote a circular fashion ecosystem. Additionally, Rebekka champions a worker-centric approach to human rights due diligence, further solidifying The Iconic's commitment to responsible practices. During our chat, Rebekka and I dived into The Iconic's sustainability strategy and its impact across climate action, circularity and ethical sourcing, the evolution of customer expectations around sustainability and how The Iconic is responding, the role of Re-Iconic, The Iconic's pre-loved and recycling initiative in tackling textile waste, how The Iconic is working with brands and suppliers to drive accountability and progress in sustainable fashion, the biggest opportunities for the fashion industry to drive meaningful change, including collaboration and leveraging data for impact. I loved this conversation with Rebekka. It gave me fresh perspectives on sustainability and the evolving ethical fashion landscape, and I'm sure it will for you too. So let's dive in. Rebekka, welcome to the Fashion Business Mindset podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Now, Rebekka, before we dive into all things sustainability at The Iconic, we'd love to hear about you. Can you share a little bit about your journey and what initially drew you to sustainability and how your career has evolved into your role at The Iconic today?
Of course, sure. So yeah, what an honor. I'm really looking forward to this chat. Thank you again and happy to share a bit about me. So I've worked in fashion sustainability for a bit over 12 years, but really I've had an interest in and kind of been involved in the fashion and textiles industry from a young age, back from when I was in New Zealand. But formally, I guess, when I was given an opportunity to work for a not-for-profit organisation here in Australia, when I cemented my journey in this space, and that was back, when fashion sustainability and ethics was a niche industry and topic, in the early 2010s, before the Rana Plaza factory collapse in Bangladesh and the subsequent fashion revolution. And, those moments, I guess, then sort of saw the global fashion industry really starting to be held to account for the impacts it was having. And it's sort of an interesting one. I've always loved the industry. The fashion industry provides so much in terms of self-expression, style, identity, that, there's so many complexities and challenges as well, in global supply chains, lack of transparency, and, for me, really wanting to be part of the movement to solve for these huge and never evolving problems is really what drew me to this work in the first place, and I guess keeps me here to this day,
Yeah.
because we've by no means solved them yet. So yeah, it was a really incredible time to be part of the fashion sustainability movement, kind of really from those early stages in Australia anyway, and kind of watch the transformation and be part of the transformation of this conversation to being one that now I think, is acknowledging the impact that our industry has on the planet and its people. So yeah, it's a really interesting journey. And I think kind of working across both not-for-profit and corporate organizations has really helped to shape my approach and gives me a balanced view in my current role, working for, a large multi-brand retailer. How do we drive progress, even if it does feel like it's slower than we'd all like it to be?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's speeding up though. I feel I can feel the momentum. It's been
There
building
is momentum.
for some time. So
Yeah.
you're certainly in a role with purpose, Rebecca. So I'd love for you to share the sustainability framework at the Iconic. We know that it is a major focus for the Iconic. And so I'd love to dive into your insights around the sustainability strategy across the three core pillars, which I believe are climate change adaptation, the circular economy, and human rights.
Yeah, of course. So the Iconic launched its first sustainability strategy actually back in 2018 formally. And, as all good strategies do, this has
Yeah.
evolved over time. So, yeah, as you mentioned, we do have an umbrella strategy, which is called our People and Planet Positive strategy. And within that, we've got those three core sustainability pillars. So the climate action pillar really focuses on the work we need to do to reduce our climate impacts, conserving natural resources, and ultimately contributing to a lower carbon world aligned with science.
Mhm.
There's obviously lots of initiatives that are going on kind of under that pillar. Then the second focus area is circularity, and we're a proud foundation member of Seamless, Australia's national clothing stewardship scheme. And that's kind of fundamental to the work that we're doing in this space around collaboration and, progressing to a more circular fashion ecosystem. So for us, this pillar is about accelerating circular systems for our business, for our customers, and I guess the industry more broadly. And really, it's about us, focusing on all resource inflows and outflows within our business, I guess, to think about it simply, things
Yeah.
like products, packaging, waste, for example. And then finally, yeah, in the human rights people space, I guess, we call it our fair and ethical sourcing pillar. And that aims to ensure that the people who make our products, the products that we sell across our own brands and our party brands, are enabled safe, fair, and decent working conditions. So that's, I guess, that third pillar.
Okay. And so with the brands that you work with, that you stock on the Iconic, is there a criteria? Is there something that those brands need to meet and comply with before they're onboarded onto the Iconic?
Yeah, so we've got, I guess, kind of two approaches to the supply chains. Like you
Yeah.
say, we've got what we call our brand human rights framework, which is exactly that, a set of kind of standards and criteria that we are progressively assessing brands against,
Yeah,
and with the intention to have, all of the brands that we work with aligned with that framework by
yeah,
2030. We've got over 1,500 brands that we sell on site. So, and, many of those brands are in different stages of their own sustainability journey. So,
yeah,
I think that's what's really interesting about our position as a multi-brand retailer, that, we really can have those conversations, support those brands if they need it,
yeah.
and kind of drive that influence in our industry.
Yeah, it's a huge scope of work, isn't it, really? But you've got some powerful initiatives there across those pillars that you've just mentioned. I'd love to talk about the balance of sustainability and commerciality. And you mentioned, with your background in the industry, you've got kind of that good balance and you can look at this through various lenses and taking the commercial side into consideration. Have you seen sustainability driven initiatives positively impact business performance? So that could be around customer engagement or loyalty or cost efficiencies or even brand differentiation. What have you seen play out across the business?
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of most effective and practical way that we've done this, and to inform this kind of balanced approach, let's say, is that we've, ensured sustainability is holistically embedded in the business. And that's first and foremost through the structure of our team. So, about 2 years ago, we actually kind of expanded our then Chief Commercial Officer's role to take ownership of sustainability. And that was really with the goal to embed kind of the sustainable practices and initiatives that we have day to day in our commercial operations, rather than sustainability being, a siloed function in the business. And we continue to evolve that over time,
Yeah,
because it's not just the commercial teams that contribute to the delivery of our sustainability strategy. So yeah, so Gail Birchall is now our Chief Commercial and Sustainability Officer, which is it's an amazing role for her to have, and for us to have that, executive presence to really drive the importance of this work. But, it's an ongoing project to ensure that all teams across the business are supported with the knowledge, the capacity, and understand their accountabilities. And obviously, then the sustainability team kind of supports strategically as well.
yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, that in the first instance has really helped kind of the evolution of, and influence the way that we're thinking about how to quantify the impact of sustainability initiatives,
yeah,
not just from a sustainability perspective, but from, a commercial perspective, a resource perspective. And it's a really great way for us to really demonstrate the value of sustainability, using data, and also and taking that commercial lens, because if we're not speaking the language that, our audience, whoever that might be, understand, then, we're really not going to be seeing the success that we need to see.
yeah,
So yeah, I think that's really been fundamental for us, and like everything continues to evolve, but we've really seen some good success sort of taking that approach. And then, yeah, I think from a customer perspective, I think it's really shifted over time, and it continues to do so. A few years ago, customers were more vocal, I think, at
yeah,
least to us, about, what their expectations were of brands from a sustainability perspective. But now it's more of a baseline expectation. Our customers
yeah,
expect us as a brand, as a fashion retailer, to just be doing business in a good way. But it's not to say that it's not a differentiator, though. And, sustainability for us remains a core pillar within our brand strategy and our brand identity. But our approach really is to talk to it, a genuine, meaningful, and action-focused way where it makes sense. So yeah, I think to say yes, there have been so many commercial, successful commercial outcomes through driving sustainability initiatives, and it's really about the way that we kind of quantify and communicate that within the business that we've seen the success.
yeah. Amazing. I would agree. It's just an expectation now, right? It needs to be business as usual.
Exactly.
I know that you've got some amazing information on your website. In terms of customer facing, How do you showcase the good work that you're doing in this space outside of the website? So, are you sharing that through your email marketing? Are there focus groups, forums? What's the connection to customer piece like?
Yeah, so we've had sort of various iterations over time. We have, since 2019, have had in place what we call our considered edit. So
Yeah.
basically it's the curation of products that meet one or more recognized sustainability certification or standard. So that enables customers that are looking to shop in that way, or for products that might meet those certifications or standards, to
Mm-hmm.
identify those products kind of in that curated way,
Yeah.
and also enables and provides information to them about what those certifications and standards are. I think that's a really important part of the communication, particularly now as sustainability communications has evolved over time, and with the lens of greenwashing and
Yeah.
being really really aware of that. And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, the approach that we're taking is really to be more kind of action focused from a communications perspective. So more recently focusing on end of life, what can customers do with products that they no longer need, to donate them or to recycle them, for
Yeah.
example. And that those communications might look like by email, as you say, or through social media.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I love the considered edit. I think that that's just, from a being able to shop your values perspective, it just makes it so much easier for the consumer. What are some of the criteria that the brands need to meet with their product being in the considered edit? Is it around transparency of supply chain? Is it sustainable fabrics? I'm assuming it's going to be a combination of.
Yeah, so the considered edit is purely a product focused edit. So the criteria underpinning that is, like you say, different material certifications or
Yeah.
standards, for example, GOTS or OCS organic cotton. And so there's various sort of product or material certifications that we recognize. All the information is on the website.
Yeah.
And then there are other certifications that might relate to beauty products, for example. But really, it's about us aligning with those recognized third-party certifications and standards, and also ensuring that the brands have done their own due diligence
Yeah.
and the work required to be able to make those claims on site.
I think that's great because it just gives consumers confidence to be able to shop again their values, and you've taken the hard work out of it for them by that product being in the considered edit. I also noticed that you have Re-Iconic, which is around pre-loved, I believe. I'd love to hear about that initiative.
Yeah, so we sort of soft launched Re-Iconic last year, actually, when we launched the evolution of our original take back scheme that we launched back in 2020 with Salvo's store. And yeah, we relaunched that in partnership with an organization called Recycle
Mm-hmm.
and with Salvo's stores. So really what that enables our customers to do, as I mentioned earlier, is for customers, they might be done with a particular piece of clothing or item, for them personally, but it's still got lots of wear in it. It's in a place where you'd give it to a friend. It's in good
Yeah.
condition. Enables them to purchase a satchel, a rewear satchel
Mm.
from our website, and put those items in that satchel, and those items get donated to Salvo's store to be sold in their stores.
Yeah.
And for the products that I'm sure we all have, I definitely do, they're worn out.
Yeah.
They're past the point of being able to donate them. And, rather than them going straight into the bin, we all know the stat around, Australians sending 200,000 plus tons of textiles and clothing to landfill every year. Rather than contributing to that landfill, this enables customers to purchase a recycle satchel and put those unwearables in that satchel, and those items get sent off to be recycled. So, it's a mindset shift,
Yeah.
this concept, but we're really excited about what it means for our customers, and for them to start thinking about what they do with their products or their clothing once it's past kind of their use. Yeah, and I think interestingly or importantly, what that does also is it encourages the pre-sorting, the thinking about, is this item really donatable, or is it really past that point? And so, pre-sorting it into those two piles. So that was the initial sort of soft launch of Reiconic, but we're really excited about evolving that over the course of this year, and sort of bringing in more pre-loved items. We've got a couple of brands on site, as you said, that are offering pre-loved items, and looking to expand that offering this year as well. And then also different ways for us to encourage our customers to engage in circular services and kind of create a bit of a hub around that for them, and really just thinking about their wardrobe in different ways.
I love that. I love that circular economy initiative, the end of life initiative. I've actually invited Belinda from Recycle onto the
Oh,
podcast. So,
great.
just for our listeners tuning in, we'll have a whole hour talking about Recycle, but I absolutely love, what she's done. And of course, to have partnered with, an amazing retailer like yourselves is just next level in terms of reaching, the masses in the market. And I guess, the whole education piece can be quite a long game, but she's doing amazing work in that space. But yeah, the partnership there it just helps to create that, I guess, that groundswell of, because sometimes there's a bit of resistance. It's like, oh, what is this? What am I buying this satchel for? People don't really take the time to understand, what that solution could mean to their world. But I think with the work like a partner like Recycle, they're doing a lot of that work at an elevated level. And so working together, you're able to amplify the message. So I love that. And of course, pre-loved is just going next level. It's just a growth sector and it's going to continue to be. So it makes sense to have that as part of your offer. So we can't wait to see that evolve, Rebekka. Before we dive into, talking about industry and improvements in this space, you touched on supply chain earlier. Is there anything else that you can share with our audience around the work you're doing with supply chain? Because we know it's complex and I think it's one of the biggest pain points for most businesses. Again, if you're managing multiple suppliers, they've got different levels of expertise and certification and accreditation and all of the things. How does the Iconic kind of stay on top of that? I'm assuming you've got a whole team on the case. And is there a vision, again, for you to get to a certain point over the next few years when it comes to supply chain partners?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, we've got, I guess, kind of two programs or approaches for our different business models. When it comes to the third-party brands and their supply chains, we've limited visibility and limited influence. And so that's why us kind of having this framework in place that I guess enables them to provide assurance or information about the policies and practices they have in place to manage their own supply chain.
Yes.
But then when it comes to our own brand and the supply chains of those, of which we currently have 10 brands, really, I think there's a huge importance in fostering long-term partnerships with the suppliers. And, we've got some suppliers that we've worked with for many, many years. Not all of our suppliers, but, there is a real importance in those long-term partnerships because it enables that ongoing collaboration and alignment on the different initiatives, and goals that we have as a business, and to share those goals with those suppliers.
Yeah.
And really, I guess, to operationalize that work, us having a team on the ground in China, which is where most of our own brand factories are,
Yeah.
has really changed the way that we can engage with and support our suppliers in this space, as well as the factories, obviously, and, really engage in some of the more complex and systemic topics and issues, such as working hours. It's very different being in a factory, talking to factory management and talking to the workers than, sitting here in Sydney and sending an email, and I'm lucky to have been able to go and visit many factories throughout my career as well and sort of support that work. But yeah, I mean, it continues to be an ongoing challenge, the lack of transparency. We don't necessarily have visibility of our entire supply chain. It is increasing. The increased use of preferred materials does give us more visibility of and kind of assurance around the types of suppliers that we're working with. But
Yeah.
supply chains are generally very complex, as we know, and it is a challenge, us being, the Iconic, yes, is a big brand name, but in the scheme of things, we're actually a pretty small player, and our leverage is actually often sort of lower than we would like it to be. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of work that we're doing and our teams are doing on the ground. Those programs continue to, evolve. But really it's about, providing that on the ground training to factories, to workers, to provide that remediation support, particularly on those systemic issues, like I said, such as, working hours.
Yeah, I think what you've mentioned in terms of having the team on the ground in China and being able to work closer with your supply chain partners, I think that's where you get, the biggest results, isn't it? It's like it is a relationship. As you said, us sitting here in Australia and jumping on a video call, that's great. But it doesn't take that partnership to the next level and, set the expectations for the way that you're going to work together and improve together, etc. And
Yeah,
I think it's great that you've been able to visit the factories yourself as well, because I think there's nothing like it. We can all sit here and have these expectations of all these wonderful
exactly.
things happening. But until you actually step into the door of your supply chain partner's factory or showroom and just get an insight into their organisation, it's very,
Yeah,
very hard to get a feeling for where they're at and where the team is at in terms of level of capability as well.
yeah,
So
exactly.
some really strong initiatives there and some processes. Thank you for sharing, Rebekka. So, Rebekka, can you share how you measure your carbon footprint?
Sure. We've actually been measuring our carbon footprint, scope 1, 2, and 3, since 2019, and really relying on science-based methodologies to inform those carbon reduction initiatives. And, initially this saw a decline in emissions that were, let's say, relatively easy to influence, things like transitioning from air to sea freight or procuring renewable energy and installing solar panels on our fulfillment center, for example. So, those things that are within our direct control. But then we've also been working on initiatives that aim to reduce our scope 3 initiatives for some time. So things like sourcing preferred fibers in our own brands and increasing our assortment of products from third-party brands that hold those recognized sustainability certifications. The scope 3 emissions puzzle, though, is a lot more complex, and especially for a multi-brand retailer like us. But, there's so many amazing platforms now that can really support businesses to measure their carbon footprint. We're lucky to work with an organisation called Unravel Carbon that supports this work. It's a really important part of what we do under the climate action pillar, really understanding where our emissions kind of hotspots and impacts are. And we'll be restating our science-based targets this year. And there's lots of work that we're doing in readiness for the incoming Australian climate disclosures, which, that 5+ years of measuring our footprint is really going to support that work.
Yeah, amazing. There's a couple of things you mentioned, which I might just clarify for our audience. You
Yeah.
mentioned scope 3. Can you talk to us about the various scopes and what they mean?
Yeah, so scope 1 and 2 emissions are really our direct emissions from our operations. So think, our energy that we consume in our head office or our fulfillment center. And then scope 3 is our indirect emissions. So that's the emissions that are generated from our supply chains. And so that's why it's so much more complex to measure and to get visibility of, and why having a platform like Unravel Carbon is so helpful.
Amazing. Can we talk a little bit more about Unravel Carbon? How do they fit in? So is this like a mapping kind of platform? How do they support you?
Yeah, so it's a cloud-based platform which we essentially upload all of the data that's required to measure the emissions associated with all of the different parts of our direct and indirect supply chains and operations. So it might be uploading all of our electricity usage, for example, or uploading all of the products that we have sold in the year into that platform. And then Unravel Carbon does all the hard work for us, let's say, to actually calculate the emissions factors associated with all of those activities, and also enable us to move from, for those that are already calculating their footprints, it's enabled us to move from using and calculating our footprint using spend-based activity, so just how much dollars we're spending on different activities to actually using activity-based data so that we can actually measure the footprint of a product and see how that differs, for example, if it's made using organic cotton in Australia versus if it's made using conventional cotton in China, and the emissions factors associated with those variables, change the results. So it's an amazing platform for us to have and to use.
Amazing. Yeah, there's definitely one for our listeners to check out. True to its name, it is unraveling because there's so much to
Exactly.
unravel there. There's so much to calculate and take into consideration just on a micro level. So some amazing work there, Rebekka, right across your carbon footprint initiatives. Let's chat a little bit about the consumer. What role do you feel that consumers play in driving sustainability forward at The Iconic? What advice would you give to any consumers tuning in that want to make more responsible choices when it comes to buying fashion?
Yeah, it's a very good question and important for us at The Iconic because, our customers are at the heart of everything we do.
Yeah.
But I think, if as a consumer you're, wanting to think about the impact that you're having from a kind of clothing wardrobe perspective, I would suggest, really just focus on purchasing good quality items and items that you love that you can add to your wardrobe. They don't have to be new, but they can be new. As we've talked about, we've got some amazing pre-loved brands on our site and are hoping to expand that range. And
Mm,
then choosing products that do have a sustainability credential or preferred fibers also is a good place to start. Maybe items that are in our considered edit. And yeah, so I think that sort of start there. And then, wear it well, look after it,
mm.
repair it if you need to. Really, think about and use your wardrobe and have a wardrobe that's made up of items that are, cherished, are valuable to you. And then when it finally comes to the end of its use for you, swap it with a friend if it's in good condition, donate it, resell it, even rent it. There's so many cool platforms out there that enable you to really think about your wardrobe in a different way. But basically, just keep it in use for as long as you can.
Yeah.
And then when it's really worn out, as we've talked about, don't put it in the bin.
Yeah.
Purchase a recycle satchel from The Iconic and then send it off to be recycled.
Yeah, I love that. There are opportunities to avoid landfill at every single touch point. And I love how you've kind of encapsulated the considered word because it's a deeper consideration. As you said, it's
Yeah,
pieces that we can have for the long term. We talk about longevity and investment pieces.
yeah,
And even if it is a fringe or a fashion item that you might only keep for one season, it is about reselling it. It's not about just, it going to landfill. There
yeah.
are so many options at our fingertips right now. And as you said, at the end of the journey, we've got recycle options. So they're really, yeah, it's all there. I think the whole education piece to what you're doing and bringing some of this information, into your customers' world is really powerful as well. Now, I'd love to hear from you what you see as the biggest opportunities for our industry. We're going to have a lot of brands and retailers tuning in, and they'll be looking to you guys at The Iconic for this leadership position, of course. So, what do you think are going to be the biggest opportunities around driving meaningful progress when it comes to sustainability?
I think collaboration really has to be one of the biggest opportunities. Seamless is a really good example of that, recognizing that not one brand can solve for these issues. And, it takes time. None of us have the silver bullet. We've been working on these topics and issues for years and years. And yes, there's momentum and things have changed. But, I think collaboratively we'll have so much more of an impact. So yeah, really encourage, anyone that's listening to reach out to me, to, share learnings, challenges, ideas, because I think that it's the way of the future. It's the only way forward. And then, yeah, I think the sort of also what we talked to earlier around surfacing and using data to sort of surface the commercial benefits as well as the environmental or social impacts of the sustainability initiatives. I think it's a real opportunity for this industry and, to ensure that the work that we're doing in sustainability does have longevity, and I'm using that data to prioritize and inform strategies, both short and long term. Yeah, I think that that's also a real opportunity for this industry.
Yeah, amazing. Some great insights there. Rebecca, I'd love to know how you stay up to date with everything that's happening in the sustainability landscape because it's complex. We've only just touched on a few things so far during our conversation, and I attend the Global Sourcing Expo every year. Well, it's on twice a year now here in Australia, in Sydney and then in Melbourne. And there's always amazing speakers, and often very much focused on sustainability, ethical supply chain, the compliance that's kind of coming down the pipeline at us. So, when it comes to myself, I'm certainly, listening to those thought leaders and, just getting that injection of information. And sometimes it's quite overwhelming. Are you going to conferences? Are there certain platforms that you tap into, people you follow? How do you keep up to date?
It's a good question. I don't know that I do. I feel like there's so much more that I probably don't know is going on. But yeah, I mean, I think it's all of the things, attending conferences or forums and hearing from these incredible innovators and, thought leaders. I was at the Sustainability Leaders Summit last week in Melbourne, and it's important to be part of those, I guess, forums to really hear what other industry players are doing, what their challenges are, the collaboration piece, like I said. But, then there's so many industry, mailing lists and emails that come out now that just are full of insights. Social media is a great place. But then also having, a network of colleagues and friends in the industry also helps because then that's, genuine sharing of thoughts or questions as well. So I think it's a mixture of all of the above, just kind of trying to keep the finger on the pulse. And it's increasingly important as well with so much regulation coming in globally and here in Australia. So yeah, it's all of the above, I think.
You need to be everywhere all at once, basically.
Exactly. And then also try and do some work.
Just that, yeah, just do your job at the same time. This could be a difficult question, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Is there anyone that you can mention that you really admire, like a retailer, a brand, or it could be several, that you look to and you think they are doing an amazing job? They're, next level, and we aspire to do some of the things that they're actually doing.
I think that there's a few of the really, fundamental sustainable businesses that, at the core of what they do, they've always had sustainability at their heart. The likes of, Patagonia, Outland Denim is another good example. From a kind of multi-brand retailer, globally, Selfridges and Zalando are both really good examples of retailers that are really investing
Yeah.
in sustainability and enabling, the system solutions that we need. So yeah, those are some examples off the top of my head, but there are
Mm.
so many incredible businesses out there, and particularly the businesses that from their core, really are doing business for good.
Yeah, I love that. There's some retailers and brands to watch, everyone. There's so many doing great work. I
Yeah,
had Marnie Godding on the podcast last year. So
yeah,
ALK has just,
yes,
had their 20-year anniversary, and I think they've just got the B Corp
yes,
accreditation, and yeah, they've just gone next level. But that's a
yeah.
20-year journey as well in our industry. We can't forget that. It's certainly a long-term, strategy to those progression points of, yes, go next level, but it doesn't happen overnight. Now, Rebecca, I'd love to know what a day in the life of your role is like at the Iconic. So, and who's on your team, who's supporting you to do all of this amazing work, if anyone. So, yeah, what's a day in the life of, head of sustainability look like?
It's always different, I think. It could be as boring as pulling together reporting, which we have a lot of,
Yeah.
important work, but, focusing on reporting or working cross-functionally with our own brand teams or our ops teams or our commercial teams. There's always a lot of, engagement across the business and with leadership and ensuring that everyone kind of understands what we're doing and how they're supporting our initiatives. Or it might be, as you say, attending, some kind of forum or working group or advisory group as well. So yeah, I think it's always different, but it's always working with so many different internal and external stakeholders, whether that's brands or suppliers or internal colleagues.
Yeah, amazing. So your role is incredibly dynamic, let's say. You're juggling all the things, wearing all the hats, and you're balancing that corporate strategy and the industry advocacy and the innovation. So there's a lot going on. Are there any practices, Rebekka, that you have in your world that help you, to maintain a routine and to have a strong mindset and ensure that you're focusing on well-being?
It's a priority for me this year, I have to say. But
Good.
yeah, I think from a work perspective, so what I mentioned before, having that really strong network of colleagues and friends in the industry, kind of acting as sounding boards, keeping me grounded to why I work in this space, as challenging as it can be sometimes. And of course, my incredible team, we're a small but mighty team at the Iconic. They're incredibly smart and supportive, as is the leadership team at the Iconic. So I think from a work perspective, really having that strong network around me is incredibly important and keeps me sane. And then, personally, I think, honestly, my kids, really keep me balanced. They're still
Yeah.
young, so it's nice to have that as, a bit of an offset, really trying to be present with them when I can, and I guess it's a bit corny, but, it is really a good reminder of why sustainability is so important, because it's really for all of those kids,
Yeah.
for them, creating a better world for them and for the generations to come.
Amazing, amazing. Very purposeful and, yeah, meaningful. So, Rebekka, finally, in closing, looking ahead, I need you to get your crystal ball out now. Where would you like to see the fashion industry in 5 years from now when it comes to progress in the sustainability space?
5 years will be 2030.
Mm,
That kind of looming number. I feel like 2025 was a looming number. It feels
no.
like yesterday.
Yeah.
What would I like to see? I think I would like to see the commitments that so many fashion brands, including the Iconic, see those commitments be realized and more. I think if everyone kind of does what they say that they're going to do by 2030, our industry could look quite different. And I also hope that, all of the innovations and the momentum, as you said, that we're really seeing emerge, I hope that really starts to drive change. It's not going to happen overnight, but 5 years, a lot can change. So yeah, I think, hopefully we see those innovations start to really drive change, and that's also will require us staying true to our commitments, to circularity, to emissions, to human rights. Not delaying or diluting commitments, I think is the key. I think that we see more collaboration. There is a lot of collaboration, but I hope that we see more over the course of the next 5 years.
I love it. I love it. Commitment and collaboration. I
Yeah,
love the commitment piece because, it's one thing making a pledge or having a goal. We see all the goals that, most brands will have on their website now or in their comms strategy. But it is about that commitment, isn't it? And, actually achieving those goals progressively over time. So we might need to check back in 5 years and
sounds
see,
good.
just check the status, Rebekka.
Sounds good.
Now, Rebekka, how can our listeners connect with you? Is LinkedIn the best place?
Yeah, of course. I'd love to hear from anyone that wants to, share thoughts, questions, curlies. Yeah, LinkedIn.
Amazing. I'll put all the details in the show notes. But I think, as you said, that collaboration piece is very important. So the more that we can connect with each other and, support each other because it is complex terrain, I think the better. Rebekka, thank you so much for sharing, pulling back the curtain at the Iconic today and talking all things sustainability. Congratulations to you, your team, and everyone at the Iconic for the incredible work that you are doing, not only in this space, but right across the retail landscape. Thank you so much for joining me on the pod.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely.
Thanks, Rebekka. Thank you for tuning in to Fashion Business Mindset. We'd love to stay connected. Fashion Equipped is a leading Melbourne-based consultancy, partnering with fashion and lifestyle brands, retailers, wholesalers, and industry leaders globally. We specialise in strategic advisory, growth planning, and brand elevation, empowering fashion businesses to scale with confidence and impact. I invite you to head to fashionequipped.com.au to join our mailing list and receive the monthly edit, your go-to source for industry insights, business optimization strategies, and free trend reports. While you're there, explore our consulting services, our online learning and mentoring programs. We'd also love to connect on Instagram. You can follow us at Fashion Equipped and at Fashion Business Mindset for more industry insights and inspiration. We're here to help you navigate the business of fashion and take your brand to the next level.
This is a Guide Your Light Network production, creating podcasts with purpose.